This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on. Church. I'm going to get on. Welcome to the best 15 hours or so in the universe. It's Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. I'm Adam Carolla. Mark Garrigus in studio, everybody.
And boy, oh boy. You know, I came over, Gary, as some of you may or may not know, is quarantined.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I'm not quarantined. You're not quarantined.
No.
I'm not masked. You're not masked.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I come join you?
God bless you. Always better when you're in studio.
I love it. I love it.
The mask mandate is
it's being lifted everywhere but
L.A.
L.A.,
Yeah, because, look, it's funny. I was talking to Dr. Drew about this, but you can tell me what you think. 5 months ago, I was on the jetway, about to enter a flight out of LAX, and Mike August from the Mouth of Babes, he said, why can't we all get vaxxed up so we can get rid of these masks? And then I said, we're not. We can hear something. I don't know. And I said to Mike, we're not getting rid of these masks. And he said, what do you mean? Once everyone's vaxxed up, we'll get rid of the mask. I said, oh, that's what they're saying, because I want you to get vaxxed up. But the masks aren't going anywhere. And he goes, well, why not? I go, look, Mike, you can't listen to people. You have to look at patterns. There's a pattern. So I was saying to Dr. Drew, I said, I just study patterns. And the pattern with LA is we're not lifting anything. And I've said, look, if you know, you're a landlord, Mark. I'm a lord of certain lands as well. If you had an apartment and you had the guy in 3B and he wasn't making rent, and you went, hey, man, you're a month late in the rent. You went, yeah, man, sorry, my truck broke down. I had to get a new clutch for the truck because I'm a construction guy. You need my truck to work. You go, oh, okay, well, we'll get it next month. And you go, okay. And then that payment didn't come. And then you'd show up again, and you'd go, hey, man, now you're 2 months late in rent. And you go, yeah, I know. My dad got ill, and he needed surgery, and his insurance didn't cover it. So I had to take the money for rent. I had to put it to my... And then you go, all right. And then you'd show up 3 months later and you go, where's your rent now? It's 3 months. And you go, hey, man, listen, my sister's in. Here's what I'm saying. There's a pattern. The pattern isn't rent or no rent. The pattern is what is this person doing?
Well, let me give you my best example. Gary, do you have the email that we received today? This has got to be, I said, talk about irony. For 2 years now, almost 2 years, 22 months, 23 months. We've been told you can't even do outdoor dining. Poor Barrett Lepedjian has lost everything because they shut him down. They reversed the health thing.
Tinhorn Flats.
Flats, right. Today, we get an email from the Department of Health. You know what it's
Who's
to all
we, by the way?
It's to restaurants. It's a blast to the 31,000 restaurants, or at least the remainder that they haven't put out of business already in the last 23 months. And they have the unmitigated gall to encourage you to expand outdoor dining because there's no risk of transmission.
Right.
And I said, wow, that is, mind you, this month I've got 3 different hearings about outdoor dining. 3 different hearings. They're still fighting it. I've got one with the county health department where they're appealing. I'm appealing. I've got another with Tinhorn Flats. I got one with my place. And today they're putting that out. Then on top, there it is. I mean, is this just unbelievable? It's unbelievable to me that they could do this.
But it's not if you're a pattern studier.
Well, that's why when the guy told me...
In Florida, the pattern is let's open up. In L.A., the pattern is let's lock down our citizens. So,
and mind you, just 2 weeks ago, I told you this. You gave me the thought. The lawyer for the county that they're paying by the hour told me we're never going to restrict anything anymore. Oh, really? Like 3 days later, it's the Super Bowl's getting restricted. Right. Then he says outdoor dining. They're telling people the risk of transmission. I've got it within the last month from outdoors is a real problem. We got to watch it. Today, we're encouraging you to expand your outdoor dining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They like rules.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's all it is.
And I see. I turn on SportsCenter at night. I see the Montreal Canadiens, and they're playing the Detroit Red Wings, and it's in an empty stadium because in Canada there can be no attendance, and then they play a game in Florida or Texas or wherever, and it's a packed arena.
By the way,
the difference?
Didn't we just have a System of the Down concert at Bank of California? And the Armos on parade. They were out there. I didn't see a whole lot of, none of it makes any sense. They can keep talking and talking and talking. There was another, Gary, what was the other? By the way, there was some breaking news, too. Our prediction that Trevor Bauer would not be filed on criminally because an L.A. Superior Court judge had already ruled that she didn't find the accuser credible. And everybody kept saying, for 5 months, the DA's been sitting on this. I said, the DA, there's no chance they're going to file after a judge already found that the accuser was not credible.
Trevor Bauer is
pitcher.
Oh, Trevor
L.A.
Bauer.
Dodgers.
Right.
Some would say top 5 pitcher. And Gary, do you have an opinion on that?
Sexual battery or some such cause.
Gary and I were just talking before we went on the air, and Gary's point was, how pissed are you if you're the L.A. Dodgers and you had to pay this guy for 5 months while the DA was deciding whether they were going to file charges?
Gary?
Yeah, he's sitting on his couch at, somewhere around $40 or $50 million a year. So you've been paying this guy to just watch TV, watch Love Boat and collect, 8-figure checks.
That's my dream job.
Isn't that your dream job?
Well, also, I'd heard that, is it dubious that the L.A. County mask mandate may be lifted a day or two after the Super Bowl?
The statewide was a day or two after. Remember when we said last time, I believe, you can go back and roll the tape, I believe they lifted some of the lockdowns the day or right before the recall election.
Right.
It was tied to that. This also, February 15th is the day they're lifting statewide. Do you know what February 16th is? I think it's the last day to file if you're going to run for the governorship next year.
Interesting.
Just a coincidence. Once again, out of 365 days in a year, they pick the 2 years in a row. They pick one day that's tied to either an election or a filing.
I heard some news on the Scott Peterson front on my drive in.
Yeah. So, by the way, I've been subpoenaed as a witness.
Really?
And I suppose why they've subpoenaed me is because the attorney general or the prosecution's taken the position that I would not have, I'm just guessing, I would not have gotten rid of the juror number 7, even if I had known that she had gotten a restraining order for the ex-girlfriend, I guess, of the guy she was living with. Today, the DA said they're going to, this is what I saw, they're going to give her immunity. She had asserted the 5th, or had given indications she was going to assert the 5th, which is interesting because if you're a juror and she's already done a declaration for the prosecution, if you then assert the 5th, that would tend to indicate that you may have some belief that there is a criminal exposure in your declaration. And it would be interesting to see who prepared that declaration, who consulted with her when she signed the declaration, and now they're going to give immunity. So I'm going to order popcorn right after I testify and watch this.
Well, remember, they're on to you. So when you eat that popcorn, you do it in a very efficient, very efficient. You dump it. You dump it all down your face.
Only our most avid listeners know exactly what that means. Now, there's another thing that I wanted Gary to play. I don't want to get sidetracked here. Gary, do you have that? Which was, let's see, we're testing poor quarantine Patrick Smith.
You had me pull up 3 videos, so I got them all ready, but you got to tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, so not the last 2, because the last 2 are going to segue. But there's
Patrick Smith. You mean
Gary Patrick Smith.
Gary Patrick Smith.
Or quarantine Patrick Smith.
That's right. Sorry.
Yeah, so the video Mark's talking about is a CNN luminary who has come out with some new thinking, and we'll have Emmy put it up on the screen for you guys there, and we'll play it. But
this is
I'm sure it's my quarantine hangover, but I was homicidal after watching this 1 minute and 30 second video.
Do you know what day this came from? Was today? This morning?
So if it's not today, it's yesterday or something.
Yeah.
This is Lou is her name, I believe.
Okay, I want people. I wish
Liana Wen, actually.
Okay,
Liana Wen. Yeah. So she, who has been Debbie Downer when it comes to COVID, talking about being scared and double bagging your hands before you touch your face and blah blah blah. Even she, in recent times, like in the last several weeks, has talked about, I don't know if I had a 5-year-old, if I would get him vaccinated. And so she's starting to change her tune.
You must listen to this. Have you heard this?
I think I have, but let's hear it.
Okay.
Do you agree with the move?
I do. There was and is a time and place for pandemic restrictions, but when they were put in, it was always with the understanding that they would be removed as soon as we can. And in this case, circumstances have changed. Case counts are declining. Also, the science has changed. We know that vaccines protect very well against Omicron, which is the dominant variant. Everyone 5 and older have widespread access to vaccines. And we also know about one-way masking, the idea that even if other people around you are not wearing masks, if you wear a high quality mask, that also protects you, the wearer, too. And so in this case, I'm not saying, I don't think anyone really is saying that no one should ever wear masks, but rather that the responsibility should shift from a government mandate imposed from the state or the local district or the school. Rather, it should shift to an individual responsibility by the family, who can still decide that their child can wear a mask if needed.
Take New Jersey, the case in New Jersey, for instance. Their new case average is just over 4,000. Is that an acceptable number?
Can somebody press pause for a second? This may be the single dumbest statistic that I've seen consistently is the case count. Mm-hmm. The case count it's not meaningless, but there is no import to it. We've been saying that. I've been arguing that. I've been saying anybody who looks at the both Israel and South Africa would know that this thing was going to peak, it was going to spike, and it was going to come right back down. By the way, newsflash, there is a precipitous decline in 49 out of 50 states. So
right. So go ahead, Gary.
Do this, or are they projecting out to March 7th at this point?
I don't think we should be looking at case counts at all at this point, especially when we're dealing with a milder variant and when so many people were exposed to Omicron.
Can I say this?
How crazy does this make you?
Well, let me put my tinfoil hat on for a second. This is CNN.
Yes.
It seems to me that somebody licked their finger and put it in the wind and said, Americans are tired. They're tired of the shutdowns and the distancing and the mask mandates. This is no longer a popular platform to run on. This happened. We got an election coming up. We're going to get slaughtered. People are tired of this. Biden said he was going to shut down the virus and not the look. Everyone, this is polling for shit. Nobody wants this. So let me send a memo out to all the mouthpieces who are on our side. Shift the messaging, because it was doom and gloom from all these people for 22 months, and now all of a sudden they're starting to sound normal or reasonable. Like, well, the parents should decide whether the child wears a mask, or we need in-person schooling, and all the stuff that I was called a heretic about.
Called a heretic? You were called names. Drew was pilloried. I mean, at least I was defending people, and I'm used to that. You guys don't get pilloried like I do.
Well, now everyone sounds reasonable, and what I'm saying is why did everyone start sounding reasonable on a dime? They just stopped and they pivoted, and somebody said, look, CNN, you're not supposed to be a mouthpiece, and Liana Wen and whatever, you're not supposed, but we all know what you guys do. Now, here's the new messaging. We're done.
We've got a problem. Just as Gavin Newsom is lifting and dropping based on days, 365 days of the year, and he just, this wasn't hitting a dartboard. Somebody started to see, hey, we got a real problem here. We got an election in 9 months, less than 9 months, and we're going to get wiped out, because the one thing that cuts across all of the independent voters, specifically, and the suburban moms, is this is insane.
Right.
And that's what finally, it's because we're not on Christmas vacation anymore.
Right. Now, for me, well, I'm glad you've seen the light. On the other hand, now I'm retroactively angry because it makes me think that the science hasn't changed. Your message has changed. And when you thought your message was a popular message, then you said 180 degrees off of what you're saying now. And now you've done some polling and you've changed your message, which is exactly what we didn't want to happen. What we wanted was the data and the science. Back out the politics, and let's do whatever makes sense.
Well, and by the way, we're about to have 1 million people dead, so everybody who is claiming that we're doing a better job the last year than we were the first year, I'll follow the science on that. Doesn't seem to be the case.
What are your thoughts? You brought up Israel, on Israel being one of the most highly vaccinated nations, and yet highest death per million. I was talking to Drew about this. A lot of people are starting to wonder, most vaccinated, highest death per million. So the aforementioned South Africa, least vaccinated, lowest per million.
And by the way,
what's going on?
Somebody did, speaking of legal cases, Pfizer was denied access today to intervene in a lawsuit demanding the data that the FDA used. And I think that's interesting. We'll do a deeper dive on that on the Big Show this week, because this is a fascinating case. And for all of you who believe so fervently in the kind of altruistic motives of Big Pharma, I'm here to tell you, as somebody who tried a case against Pfizer, got one of my biggest verdicts ever, which was taken away from me 14 years ago. The chief medical officer's testimony in that case wouldn't have passed a laugh test, and didn't. I mean, the jurors were angry in that case. It was something. So we're going to do a little bit of a dive, because you may find that there were other things going on here.
I've never been a conspiracy guy, never been there's a second gunman with Kennedy, or those Twin Towers, there wasn't a Jew in the building, I laugh all that stuff off. But as it pertains to a lot of COVID stuff, whether it's where it emanated from, or Big Pharma, or the attack on whomever who's saying something contrary to the narrative, starting to get my
the antenna coming up.
Antenna.
We talked about the lab theory, and we'll get to all of this. I wanted to end on one thing, because I'll tease this. There's 2 different events that have happened in the last couple of days, which I don't think are unrelated. One is Mitch McConnell. Gary, do you have that ready to play, Mitch?
Yes, I can pull that up for you guys on the screen right now.
Well, let me give you my view of what happened January the 6th. And we're here. We saw what happened. It was a violent insurrection for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next. That's what it was. With regard to the suggestion that the RNC should be in the business of picking and choosing Republicans who ought to be supported, traditionally the view of the National Party committees is that we support all members of our party, regardless of their positions on some issues.
Do you have confidence in her, Ronna McDaniel, as chairwoman of the committee?
I do, but the issue is whether or not the RNC should be sort of singling out members of our party who may have different views from the majority. That's not the job of the RNC.
Then there's also, I think it was Mike Pence at the Federalist Society. And here's this, Gary, just a brief.
McConnell went with violent insurrection.
Right. Yeah.
Not riot.
Uh-huh.
As constitutional conservatives, the American people must know that we will always keep our oath to the Constitution, even when it would be politically expedient to do otherwise. As the late, great Justice Antonin Scalia said, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. which is apply the Constitution.
I'm going to make a bold statement here because both these guys have been.
So his statement here was, "I was not going to overturn the results of
the election." And McConnell, who famously, January 6th or the day after, he was full of piss and vinegar, and then he kind of went the other direction. Pence just was on milk cartons for quite a while until this. I also think this is driven now by some polling. I think there's some polling out there that shows that Trump may have some vulnerabilities that they're not as worried about, in the last 72 hours that they were for the last year. I think that maybe there's something that's going to be dropped or going to be revealed in terms of documentary evidence or in terms of some filings or something. I just say stay tuned. I'm becoming, we've kind of switched. You always have the conspiracy theories. Now I've got the conspiracy theories.
Well, maybe we both have them. I find Pence to be very sober and a good orator. I don't know. He got lost in the whole Trump shuffle. But, when he was debating Kamala Harris and stuff, I thought, and that all got lost with the fly that landed on his head.
The fly in his head.
But if you watch that debate, it's like, this guy's a sharp cookie. And he seems very sober. And he got thrown under the bus with Trump, but he seemed to be like a competent guy.
Well, I think one of the reasons that they picked him is that first of all, he's got the credentials for the Southern strategy, so to speak. He's kind of a dyed-in-the-wool Christian, doesn't have dinner or a meal with another woman unless his wife is present, was in the House and was apparently favorably looked at by the Republican side of the aisle. And He's got a politician's look. If you're if you want the perfectly coiffed white guy to employ the Southern strategy, this guy looks like he's from Central Casting.
Yeah, so it sounds like they're both getting out ahead of something that they know they're privy to before we are. So be prepared for something to drop.
I mean, clearly Mitch knows what's happening because he gets briefed and he's got, he's the minority leader. This guy Pence has been cooperating, as has his chief of staff, ex-chief of staff. So I'm suspicious, and I would say we will know by the time of the taping of the Big Show this week.
So you can go to AdamCarolla.com for all the live shows. I'm coming to a town near you. What do you got, Mark?
Come down to Gigi's this weekend in V Palm Springs. It's the place for brunch. I suggest you go by.
So until next time, Adam Carolla for Mark Garagos saying mahalo.
Thanks for listening to Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. Stay tuned for more bonus episodes coming soon.